VS Code is an integrated development environment, which means that it's a software application that gives us, the developers, a place to build applications. There are a lot of different IDEs out there, such as Sublime Text and Atom, but VS Code's popularity in recent years has launched them to the front of the pack, and for good reason. Right out of the box, there are some amazing features that are powerful not only for beginners, but for seasoned developers as well. So, if you haven't already, pause the video to download and install VS Code and meet me back here. Once we've installed VS Code, we can open up our application and we're taken to a welcome page that gives us a bunch of options. On the left we see Start, and this is where we can start a new file, open a folder, or add a workspace folder. Recent, in the middle of the page, is just your recent projects that you've been working on, and they're all listed there. Help is where you can find things like a keyboard cheat sheet, tips and tricks, introductory videos, or even a newsletter. On the top right, we see Customize. This is where we can install support for different tools and languages. We can check out settings and key bindings. We can even change the theme of our VS Code user interface. We can change the color theme, which is really fun. Underneath that, we see Learn. This is where we can find and run all commands, your keyboard shortcuts. We can get a little bit deeper with your user interface. And we have an interactive playground. We're going to click on Interactive Playground to learn some of VS Code's most common features. Now this is where things get really fun. This page allows you to learn interactively to get used to navigating VS Code. At the top we see a menu with a list of topics that are covered. We're just going to focus on a couple important ones for now. So if we scroll down, the first item that we see is multi-cursor editing. Basically, this lets you edit more than one line of code at once. All we need to do is hold down Alt and click where we want another cursor. Now we have 3 cursors on the page. If we want, we can erase 3 lines at once, or we can add them back in. Cool. And if you want to get rid of that cursor, you simply just need to click outside of the code. So let's scroll down and check out IntelliSense. IntelliSense is kind of like a spell check or an error check for your code. That squiggly line should look kind of familiar if you've ever used something like Microsoft Word. So if we want to focus in on this error that they're showing, we can click right before this red squiggly line, Control and space, and a list pops up. Now, we have a lot of different options, and what's right for your code will be different than this list, but let's do _destroy, and the red squiggly line goes away. Awesome. So if we scroll down, the next thing we're going to check out is formatting. Formatting is really important for your code because you want to make your code look clean and professional. So let's say you have too many spaces in your code and it doesn't look great. It's a little cramped, right? So what you can do is Shift-Alt-F, and it will format all of your code. If you want to edit just one piece of code, or even just one line, you can highlight that line and do Command-K and Command-F for Mac, or Control-K and Control-F for Windows. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to do Command-K, Command-F, and you can see it formats just that one line perfectly. The last thing we're going to check out is snippets. So what a snippet is basically an autocomplete feature for your code. In this example, we're doing a try-catch error for JavaScript. So I only need to type try, and a list pops up, and I can scroll down to what I need. So if I hit the down arrow to try catch, hit enter, it automatically completes my code. And you can see the cursor is right where it needs to be. It's type in the error that I want to catch. So we're going to close our interactive playground and meet back on the welcome page. On the left side of our welcome page, we have something called an activity bar. The activity bar has 5 different icons: Explorer, Search, Source Control, Run, and Extensions. Let's click Explorer. This is probably where you're going to be spending most of your time in VS Code. This is where you have your project set up. At the top, we have open editors, which is just going to be any file that you're currently working out of. So if you're working out of an HTML file, that HTML file will be open here. Underneath that, you have your project setup. You can add files, rename files, or even change your folder structure. Underneath your Explorer, we have search. So here, we can actually search for keywords and replace those keywords throughout our entire code base in one place. So if I had a variable that was maybe non-descriptive, like item, I can change that variable in my entire code base right here. So I can change that to something more descriptive like this, hit enter, and then throughout your entire code base, that variable name changes. Next, we have source control. It says at the top, in order to use Git features, you can open a folder containing a Git repository or clone from a URL. So basically, Git is built right into VS Code. So if you use Git and GitHub for your source control, you're going to love VS Code. Next, we have run. Run is a debugger that's built into VS Code. So if you have something like Node.js installed, you can open a file, click run and debug, and VS Code will debug that file for you. So that's really awesome. Last but not least, we have extensions. So if you've read anything about VS Code, you've probably heard a little bit about their extensions. This is where we can totally customize our experience with VS Code. So the way you use VS Code might be completely different from the way I use it, and that's what makes it so fun. So at the top, I have my enabled extensions. I have things like linters and debuggers. I even have formatters for my code. Underneath that, I have my recommended extensions. So my recommended extensions are recommended to me personally, and I do a lot of web development, so VS Code is recommending web development type extensions to me. So your recommended extensions are going to be completely different from mine. So that's what makes this so fun. You can customize your experience as much as you want. In our next section, we're going to talk about how to set up your project. The importance of your project setup is often underestimated when learning to code. Let's take a look at a couple ways to get started with a new project. At the top of your welcome page, click New File. When you click New File, a plain text file appears. And this is great if you want to take notes, but it doesn't exactly facilitate the best place to write code. So at the bottom right side of your page, click Plain Text. And when you click Plain Text, a list of different file types appear that VS Code recognizes. So scroll down to HTML and click that. Now, our file is an HTML file, and we can start setting up our code structure. And if you remember from before, IntelliSense will recognize the different tags that you are trying to type. So if you type HTML and click enter, our HTML tags appear. So this makes setting up your project a lot faster. I can type head, and my head tags appear. Next, I can type body, and my body tags appear. Awesome. So if I press Command B to open up our Explorer, we notice at the top under Open Editors, we have our open files. Now, if we started adding a lot more files, 10, 15, 20 files, this could get messy really, really quickly. Let's try a different way to organize our project. Now, the way that I like to start a new project is simply by creating a folder on my desktop. So I'm going to right-click and select New Folder. Let's call this VS Code App. Now I could just drag this into VS Code. Once VS Code is open, we see in our Explorer on the left side of our page that the VS Code app folder is already open. In here, we can create new files and new folders, and we can organize the structure of our project. Let's start building our project. On the left side of your page in the Explorer, you can click the New File icon to create your first file. Let's call this index.html. And we'll create another file called style.css. Press enter. And let's create one more file called main.js. This will be our JavaScript file. So this is perfect for now, but if we started adding a lot more files, things could get messy pretty quick. Let's create a couple folders to organize our files. We can click the second icon, which is New Folder, and let's call this CSS. Press Enter. And one more folder called JS for all of our JavaScript files. Now we can simply drag our files into these folders. So I'm going to drag my CSS file into my CSS folder and click Move. And now I can drag my JS file into my JS folder and click Move. Nice. So my project is looking really organized now. All I need to do is go to the top where it says Open Editors and close some of the files that I don't really need right now, like my welcome file, my CSS file, and my JavaScript file. And now we're just working out of our HTML file. If you want to customize your user interface or your coding environment, VS Code offers virtually endless possibilities. Let's go to the bottom left and click your Manage icon. Then choose Settings. Here we have a lot of different settings to choose from. Let's just look at a couple. So at the top, we have a drop-down menu for autosave. If I click that, I have after delay set up. You can also choose on focus change or on window change, but after delay allows you to save at a given interval. So this is 1000 milliseconds, which is just 1 second. So every second, my files automatically save. You can also change that to every 10 seconds or 100 seconds, but let's just keep it every second for now. Next, we have our font size. So right now this is 16 pixels. Let's change this to 20 pixels and see how that looks. That's a little bit easier to read. Let's keep that. Next, we have font family, which I just have the default font family set up for VS Code. Let's scroll down to cursor style. The default cursor style is line, but we can also change that to a bunch of other options. Let's check out block outline. Our cursor changed. This is the block outline cursor. It looks pretty good. But let's just go back to our default cursor for now. Go back to the bottom left and click your Manage icon and select File Icon Theme. This is where we can change the icon next to our file names. If you want to change that to minimal, it'll change all of the icons and all of your file names to the minimal theme. SETI is our default icon theme, but what if we want to install a different theme? We can choose Install Additional File Icon Themes. Then we're taken to the Extensions Marketplace. This is where things get really interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about what extensions are. Back on the VS Code website, under Extension Marketplace, it says that VS Code extensions let you add languages, debuggers, and tools to your installation to support your development workflow. VS Code's rich extensibility model lets extension authors plug directly into the VS Code UI and contribute functionality through the same APIs used by VS Code. These are built by real people. That means extensions address a wide range of developer needs with tools such as linters, color and UI themes, debuggers, and more. So let's look at a couple. We mentioned before that if we want to change the icon theme, we can go down to Manage, File Icon Theme, and we have a list of different default themes to choose from. We can install additional file icon themes down at the bottom. When we click that, our Extensions Marketplace opens up. Here we have a list of a ton of different icon themes to choose from, but let's select Material Icon Theme for now. Then choose Install. Once this is installed, we can choose Material Icon Theme from this drop-down menu. And if we go back to our Explorer, we notice the icons next to our file names changed. And I think this actually looks pretty great, so I'm going to keep this for now. Let's look at a couple extensions that I already have installed. Go to your activity bar and select Extensions. Next, search for Live Server. This is one of my favorite extensions, and basically, it just removes the need to constantly refresh your browser when you make changes to your code. It'll make those changes in the browser automatically, so you don't have to do that. Next, let's search for ESLint. ESLint is amazing for a lot of different things, but I mostly just use it for two important ones. When you save your file, it'll automatically format your code to make it more readable, and it'll even fix some simple syntax errors. Let's see this in action. Click your HTML file, and choose Command-S to save your file. And you can see it automatically makes your code more readable. Let's look at one more. This one's called Horizon. And this is a UI theme that you may have noticed I already have installed. So let's go back down to your Manage icon and choose Color Theme to go back to your default themes. My Horizon theme is actually listed here with a couple different ones, bold and italic, and their original Horizon theme. Dracula is another extension that I have installed. Let's click that just for reference. And this actually looks really, really cool, but I'm going to switch back to my Horizon theme. Nice. Next, we're going to piece everything together that we've talked about to see our project display in the browser. We'll even talk about a couple more keyboard shortcuts to improve your experience. But back on your desktop, let's create a folder named VS Code App. Right-click and select New Folder. Now you might remember that this is the exact folder that we created before, but I wanted to start this process over so we can really review how to build a project from scratch. Let's drag this folder into VS Code. Now we can start to code. Let's create our file structure. Over in your Open Editors, close out of your welcome page, and then select New File. We can call this index.html and hit Enter. And then we can create a style.css file and also a main.js file. Let's organize these files by creating a couple folders. The second icon, New Folder, can be called JS. And then we can create a folder called CSS. Let's put our main.js file in our JS folder and our style.css file in our CSS folder. Now everything's all set up. Let's close out of our CSS and our JS files because we're just going to be working out of our index.html. So believe it or not, there's still a couple keyboard shortcuts that we can talk about to make your project build a lot easier. At the top of your HTML file, type ! and hit Enter. IntelliSense will set up your HTML structure for you so you don't have to. Now you might notice there's a little bit of horizontal scrolling, and this can get pretty messy, but there's an easy fix for that. Select Alt or Option and Z. Let's say you want to move a particular line of code up or down. You can do that by selecting Option and a down arrow or an up arrow. This is pretty good for formatting small bits of code, but if you want to format your entire code base, then you're going to want to use something like ESLint. And I have ESLint installed, so I'm going to press Command-S to save my file, and that'll automatically format my code for me. If you want to toggle your panel, you can press Command and J, and a couple tabs up here: Problem, Output, Terminal, and a debug console. I mostly just use Command J for the terminal. And if you print your working directory and press Enter, you can see that VS Code automatically directs you to the current directory, which is your VS Code app folder. So there's no need to navigate to that folder. And you can press Command J to get out of that. If you want to toggle your activity bar, you can press Command B, and you can get rid of that. although I want to keep mine open because I want to see my file structure while I work. For any of your other keyboard shortcut needs, select Command, Shift, and P, and the list of options will appear at the top. Now, you don't have to memorize all of these, but if you do have any questions about your keyboard shortcuts, this is the place to go. You can press Escape to get out of that. Let's write a bit of code and use Live Server to see how quickly our page updates in the browser. If you haven't already, pause the video and install Live Server. Once you've installed everything correctly, an option should appear at the bottom right of your page that says Go Live. Click that option when you see it. So this is our website. This is the index.html file that we're working out of right now. So the first thing that we're going to do is change the title of this page to VS Code App. So if you notice in the browser, the title of this tab changes to VS Code App. I didn't have to save it or reload the page. Right underneath the first body tag, type H1 and press Enter. And IntelliSense does the heavy lifting for us. Let's go to the next line and create a paragraph tag. Type P and press Enter. Great. So inside of our H1 tag, we're going to type hello from VS Code. And there it is. Cool. So in our paragraph tags, let's type, we are using Live Server to update our website in real time. And without saving the page or reloading our browser, it shows up on our website. That's really cool. I hope this workshop provided some clarity to questions you may have had and the confidence to build applications on your own. VS Code is an amazing tool that's limited only by our creative capacity. So take a moment to review what you've learned and try building something on your own to get used to your new VS Code skills.